जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी
जी जय बाल गोपाल जय दीनाथ जी जय गिरि गोवर्धन
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupam Kadamaya Radhani Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sajatam Sarvaragunatam Namasajivam Sadvaitam Sadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakamitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo 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 Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Visatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, we'll continue discussing chapter 13 of the Bhagavad Gita, the nature of the enjoyer and consciousness. But we could spend a minute or two just discussing. Yesterday was Mahashivratri. And so, who is Lord Shiva?
Devotee of
Hmm?
Devotee of Lord Krishna.
A great devotee of Lord Krishna. Yes. What other things do we know about Lord Shiva?
He has a Shambhu Tattva special section.
Hmm?
Shambhu Tattva,
Okay.
from the Vishnu Tattva or Jiva Tattva.
So he is
Special place.
Shambhu Tattva. He has a very unique position. He is neither Jiva Tattva or Vishnu Tattva. That's in between. Yeah. What else do we?
He is called upon when the time for annihilation comes in.
Yes, so he performs the service. He is one of the Guna avatars. So he is the overseeing the mode of ignorance and will oversee the destruction of the universe in accordance to the time cycle that Krishna has established for each and every universe. Performs that service. What else?
He is Natraj,
He
the
is-
king of, the supreme dancer, so to speak,
Yes.
short of Lord Krishna.
Yes. Well characterized. Short of. But yes, he has a very famous dance that he does as part of his movement. When he first appeared at the beginning of the millennium, at the beginning of the creation, from the forehead of Lord Brahma in his Rudra form, he began his dance. And Brahma said, "Not now. That time is coming later. Not now." Yes. What else do we know about Lord Shiva?
He took Ganga Devi on his head
He,
when she was coming down from the spiritual world.
he facilitated all of us having the opportunity to receive the most auspicious darshan and blessings of Ganga Devi by receiving her force upon his head and thus allowing it to flow here in the earthly planet very nicely. Yes, before that. What else? Good. Anything else about worship we should discuss?
He took the poison from the ocean when it was churned,
He took the poison.
and then the drop fell, and a snake,
Yes.
and poisonous.
Many try to imitate Lord Shiva, some of his activities. But you cannot imitate some, you have to imitate all. So if you're going to, then you can try to take some poison and hold it in your throat. Don't let it drop, don't let it come out.
Neelkant.
Good luck. Forget about receiving the force of Ganga Devi and let's try just that. Yeah.
In Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a pastime of Daksha Prajapati, how he insulted him so much, and we are so conditioned, so somebody says something little bit also gets so much affected and take it to heart. And someone is insulting him publicly so much there, and he just walked off silently, and that is like a very epitome of tolerance we can learn from.
How or why was he able to do that, do we think?
Because he was always chanting, remembering Krishna, chanting, remembering Lord all the time.
This is the indication of his position as a great devotee. Only a devotee or Vishnu himself can have that type of tolerance. Right? So it's indicative. When we say a great devotee, we need some indications of it. So there's a wonderful indication. And he is not worried about his reputation. He's not worried about what maybe somebody criticizes his bhakti. He is simply worried about his divine Lord and his pleasure. And so he's detached from all the things that may disturb him from his bodily concept. And thus, it's a great indication of his devotional quality. And that devotional quality only comes out by the practice of bhakti. One can feign temporarily this tolerance, but after a while it'll eat you up and it'll come out. Only when one takes to the process of devotional service can such quality like that take out. And we see that Lord Shiva, he is known as Ashutosh. And thus, millions of people approach him for so many material boons.
Easily pleased, right?
Yeah, easily pleased. Ashutosh means easily pleased. So because he's easily pleased, we want the easy way to obtain some boons. But we see, is Lord Shiva himself enjoying that type of boons that he's giving out? How is he living? Very austere. Very austere. No even shelter. Right? So he is unattached materially. Another indication of his devotional service. And Parvati Devi, her purity, that she is staying with him in such a place. Why? Because of his devotion. The devotee's qualities are all attractive. They make one pleasing to all. Lord Shiva is also the head of one of the 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas. So we have 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas, and Lord Shiva, the Rudra Sampradaya, is coming from him. And thus, he is a great authority on devotional service. He is a great acharya in explaining and executing the process of devotional service. And we see he is one constant activity. What is his one constant activity? Chanting the holy names of the Lord. Acharya teaches by example. And Lord Shiva is teaching by example. Right? Detached from all material affairs, detached from desire for pride or fame in society. But he's attached to his beloved Lord. And chanting the names of Ram, 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 Ram. So Lord Shiva is an expansion from Vishnu Tattva, coming from Krishna, and Prabhupada gives the example of how yogurt is it comes from milk. So in one way they're very similar, or we could say almost one and the same, but they're not the same, they're different. And once it's yogurt, it cannot go back to milk. Okay? So Shambhu Tattva is an eternal constitution or position. It does not move up or down. It is an eternal position. And Lord Shiva possesses 55 of the 64 total principal qualities. And the Jiva Tattva possesses up to 50. So the highest Jiva Tattva, up to Lord Brahma, you can see, sits below the realm of Lord Shiva. So it's just good to understand where Lord Shiva is. And so, we honor and respect and discuss the pastimes of Lord Shiva for our own advancement in the process of devotional service. Being a great devotee, we have an opportunity to learn from him how to achieve this Vaishnava Mita Shambhu, high topmost position as Vaishnava. There are many sweet pastimes in Vrindavan of Lord Shiva that are there. We won't discuss them today, but maybe on Sunday we'll discuss more. But we should understand the great position of Lord Shiva. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu teaches us, as he himself would visit the Lord Shiva temples before entering the holy dhams, understanding that Lord Shiva provides a great service of protecting the holy dhams. And why is he protecting the holy dhams? So that all of us can make some progress in the process of devotional service. So you see so many of his activities, receiving Mother Ganga, teaching through the Rudra Sampradaya, showing by his own examples, chanting, tolerance, protecting the, all these activities geared at helping the lost conditioned souls achieve the process of devotional service. So Lord Shiva is a very compassionate and loving personality. Of course, he is worshipped for many other reasons as well. But this is the topmost reason one can truly worship. Just like we know when the great devotee of Lord Shiva was asking for some great benediction, he sent his devotee to Sanatana Goswami. And he said he has something very valuable that can turn anything into gold, a touchstone. You put it on a rock into this touchstone, it turns into gold. Wow, it can produce a lot of gold. So we went to go see Sanatana Goswami. Where was he keeping this touchstone? Not in the garden, the bottom of the garden. And this devotee Lord Shiva asked Sanatana Goswami, I hear you have something, this touchstone, and offered some glorification. And he said, yeah, you can have it. And as he's walking out back with this touchstone, he said, wait a minute. If this is so valuable, why would he keep it in the bottom of trash? He must have something more valuable. He must have something more valuable. So he runs back. Wait a minute, you tricked me. You have something better. You don't know why you would keep this in the trash. What do you have more valuable? He said, you really want to know? I did. Okay, first you take this touchstone, you throw it in the river. Really wanted to test his surrender. Right? How many of us would think, I don't know. What's behind door number 1 or door number 2? Right? And we debate. Right? So, but he threw it in the river. And he came back. And now you want to know what's more? And what did he give him? A diamond touchstone? He said, the holy names of the Lord. Chanting the holy names. Nothing is more valuable than that. So, by Sanatana Goswami's actions, we understand what is valuable. It's the exact same with Lord Shiva's actions. If material wealth and prosperity was valuable, would he himself have established great opulence and wealth? Being Shambhu Tattva, he had certainly the potency to do so. So why he was living a very austere and detached life? Should ask the question, just as we ask, why would Sanatana Goswami have this touchstone under a pile of garbage? There must be a reason for it. So with Lord Shiva's position is there's great reasons for his program. He has many options, but he is choosing to focus on the most valuable activity. And so in this way, by studying the personality of Lord Shiva, we understand by his example the importance of devotional service. That is a little bit on Lord Shiva. Anything else? Anybody else wants to comment on Lord Shiva?
I have just a question.
Yeah.
That, so when he said he's a topmost devotee, so can we say that Lord Shiva performs pure devotional service?
Yeah.
Then why can't we say that he's a pure devotee? We don't say that he's a pure devotee, or we do say?
I don't know. I have not seen it as it not being.
Okay.
But not exactly sure. But I have not seen it him not characterized as such. The residents of Kailash are this eternal, there are different realms. They are there practicing devotional service to enter into the spiritual world, Vaikuntha Loka, which is only the realm of pure devotional service. So, Lord Shiva doesn't have a motive in his service. Right? So,
one question. So if he is not in the material world, but as such, residence is not in the spiritual world, right? It's kind of in the middle. Would we say that?
yeah, it's a little bit difficult for we destroyed
Yes,
through the
about
different universal time creations, and so there is that eternal realm that exists there.
So, further to that question or comment, like in the inverted banyan tree, we say the Brahman Lok is the highest point of the route, so to speak,
In the material world.
in the material world. Would this also mean that Mount Kailash is from the other side, the lowest point?
No, so there's two Mount Kailashes, one in the material world and one in the spiritual world.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at the abode of Lord Shiva.
In the spiritual world.
In the spiritual world.
Because they're both his abode. But
Okay.
So that's why Shambhu Tattva is a little bit complicated, right? There are many different Rudras, there's different form. So there's, but this Sadashiv, personality, this is the Lord Shiva that resides in the eternal Kailash realm. So that's what we understand as like the core. And then from there are different expansions of Lord. Because we see, in the universal creation, we see that Lord Shiva is born from Brahma. But then how he can be having 55, right?
And that's exactly what I want to lead to.
Just like Varaha comes from the nostril of Lord Brahma.
Yeah.
Right? So we have to be
Yep.
not apply our material logic to these sorts of things, right? Yeah. Because otherwise we can get twisted around and that. So
Thank you.
yeah. So but this and again the understanding of Shambhu Tattva is very there's many intricacies and different details and different angles of vision. But we know there is, great confusion because some, the Shivites will, suggest that he is the supreme one, but he himself doesn't suggest that, and that breaks down the whole. And we see this from his own activities throughout, even in Srimad Bhagavatam, when he was in a distressed situation, what did he do?
Pray to the Lord.
He went to Krishna. Right?
Even in Ramayana, like he reveres and bows down to Lord Rama.
So, yes.
So, he presides over, like, there's Tamas, Rajas, and Guna, right? So he presides over Tamas, being a pure devotee. So he is only doing that as a service to Krishna, right? Or because he's not in mode of ignorance.
Is Yamaraj suffering from hellish reactions?
No.
No, he's performing the service for Krishna in the hellish planets. But it doesn't make him of hellish condition, right? So as you said, he is performing the service for a devotee is willing to do anything for Krishna. Anything for Krishna. Whatever it takes. That is the mood of a pure devotee. Not, I'll do this and that, but I won't do these two things. The devotee is willing to do any service for Krishna.
And is the service a result of your past deeds? Or why would someone be given this service versus something else? Why would Lord Yama be given to rule over the hellish planets and not Kuber's place of ruling over
It's
the
the
world?
jurisdiction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
So it's got nothing to do with that physical.
We should, and we'll discuss this tomorrow morning in our Bhagavad Gita study, we should surrender the idea of why. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Arjuna was told to fight the battle, ultimately it didn't matter why. It didn't matter that it was the duty of a Kshatriya to overcome the aggressors. It didn't matter that this karma yoga process was going, none of, the only thing that mattered was Krishna wanted that. And one has faith that Krishna's plan is perfect for me. And if you have faith in that, then the why question never enters. Right? The why question never enters. Because it doesn't matter. Because you know, wait a minute, this is best for me. It's coming from the absolute truth. And Krishna has perfect love for all of us. So then, why that service? Doesn't matter. And that is how we should approach the spiritual master. When the spiritual master gives some instruction, it doesn't really matter why. Now we may ask why to build our faith, but we should understand that is a deficiency in our surrender, which is, again, we have progressive steps to getting there, so it's natural. But the need to know why implies some lack of full implicit faith. Because with implicit faith, it doesn't matter why. Now, there are reasons to know why, maybe to learn, to understand. So my point is that in our internal mind, in consciousness, that is the mood of full surrender. It is a very high threshold, right? So we want to inch our way to that. So why different devotees get certain? That is the disposition of Krishna. His plan is perfect. He knows what is best for each and every living entity in their process of devotional service. And thus, he reciprocates with everyone completely and fully. So let's read verse 31. Someone wants to read the verse in chapter 13.
यदा भूत प्रत्यक् भावम् एकस्थम् अनुपयासति तत एव च विस्तरां ब्रह्मा सम्पादयते तदा. When a sensible man ceases to see the different entities due to different material bodies, and he sees how beings are expanded everywhere, he attains to the Brahman conception.
When one can see that the various bodies of living entities arise due to the different desires of the individual soul and do not actually belong to the soul itself, one actually sees. In the material conception of life, we find someone a demigod, someone a human being, a dog, a cat, etc. This is material vision, not actual vision. This material differentiation is due to a material conception of life. After the destruction of the material body, the spirit soul is one. The spirit soul, due to the contact with the material nature, gets different types of bodies. One can see this, he attains spiritual vision, thus being freed from differentiations like man, animal, big, low, etc. One becomes purified in his consciousness and able to develop Krishna consciousness in his spiritual identity. How he then sees things will be explained in the next verse.
So Krishna has been speaking about vision the last several verses, right? Last week we talked about how great it would be if everybody saw the spirit soul within everyone. And we described society, it was like almost like this idealistic place. So when we talk about Krishna consciousness being the foundation of perfection of society, we see specifically why. So what is this material vision? What is material vision? Is what I see through my glasses, or what is material vision?
When you recognize the material body more than seeing someone as a spirit soul, you see the cat, the dog, someone's a human being, someone's a demigod.
And what then is spiritual vision?
Seeing that everybody is a part and parcel. I mean, what is there is the soul itself. Everybody being a part and parcel of the Supreme Lord.
Even an insect has got a soul, just like a human being too. So you need to be respectful to all, just because it's a small, minute thing. Doesn't mean you can do it.
And so when the person with vision sees that there's a living entity in each, but they have different bodies, how does he understand the different bodies?
The bodies are a result of the soul's own desires in his past births, and that is why he has attained to fulfill his desires.
So the devotee understands that the different bodies is just a function of that living entity's past desires and actions. So if he sees a lower body, he knows there's been a higher degree of misuse of independence. A higher body, less degree of a misuse of independence. But in any case, he sees that there is a different body, but that is just a covering. Right? Covering for the soul. And what is the result of seeing this? Why is this important for us?
To show him that the soul is eternal, because soul is the one that goes on based on desires, body after body, and the bodies are basically temporary. Which means today you might have this, tomorrow based on what you do, you might get a different body. But the soul continues on.
Yeah? So what is the benefit of me knowing this, right? So we say to see something, it gives me some value, right? I can see the contents of this room, and it gives me some utility, some function, right? So when I can observe the spirit soul in all living entities, what is the benefit for me in that vision, of that vision?
Consciousness, according to Srila Prabhupada, the consciousness gets purified.
The consciousness gets purified. And specifically, what is being purified?
The realization of how we are placed vis-a-vis Lord Krishna. Eventually, it is Krishna everywhere.
Okay, so that's one aspect, is how Krishna is everywhere in our relative relation or position. Yeah. What else is purified when we see the soul everywhere?
Your ego.
What's that?
Your ego. Your ego, like if you see everyone as a spirit soul, and the spirit soul is one, you're not indifferent than the ant or the dog or the tree. You know, they're also same spirit souls and stuff. So, you know, you realize you're an insignificant servant.
Okay. What?
Impurities in your heart.
The impurity in the heart, but specifically, okay. So our first session together, whatever it was, and every session we make one comment. What is the most fundamental foundational comment we make?
Who am I?
We are spirit souls, and we are
Not this body.
not this body. Okay? And aside from chanting our rounds really, really nicely, what is the hardest thing for us to apply in our day-to-day life every moment?
Think of Krishna.
Seeing ourselves as spirit soul, not this body. So what do you think the result is of seeing everybody else as spirit soul?
We understand we are spirit.
We'll understand ourselves to be spirit soul. Right? So by observing it externally, it helps to purify our own false ego. The identification with the body. Because now I'm not identifying anyone else as their body. Then by logical conclusion, I'm going to stop identifying myself with the body. Understand? So this is just like very powerful. Because honestly, sometimes, in devotional life, we think like, I'm already nice to everybody. I know everybody. So what? But the tangible benefit is we start to see all the living entities as spirit soul. It helps us see ourselves as spirit soul. So Srila Prabhupada says at the end of the purport, when one can see this, he attains spiritual vision, thus being free from differentiation. I'm paraphrasing. One becomes purified in his consciousness. So that purification is specifically helping us. Yes, all of the things that we talked about, thinking I'm the master, understanding my relative position, I'm the eternal servant. Those are all very important. But fundamentally, breaking down this attachment to the body. And last week we gave, a very vivid example, Krishna gives himself, of how we should view ourselves as living within this body. Anyone remember that example?
9 gates.
And
City of 9 gates, you said.
Yeah.
I'm not the city of Troy.
I'm not the city of Troy. Right? As obvious as that, it should be that obvious to us. I'm not this body. Because I'm just residing in this body. As I am residing in the city, and I'm not the city, I, the spirit soul, am residing in this body. So as clear as that is how clear it should come to our consciousness. So this, seeing the soul everywhere, helps us come that closer. And what is the result then of purifying our consciousness? Prabhupada continues that sentence with what's...
Develop Krishna consciousness in his spiritual identity.
One can develop Krishna consciousness in his spiritual identity. Okay? So, very, very clear. And he is able to then render this process devotional service. Make sense? Let's read 32. 32. Somebody else?
Can I?
These are 2 readers who read every week.
Can I read that translation?
Yeah.
Okay. Those with the vision of eternity can see that the imperishable soul is transcendental, eternal, and beyond the modes of nature. Despite contact with the material body, O Arjun, the soul neither does anything nor is entangled.
Purport?
A living entity appears to be born because of the birth of the material body, but actually the living entity is eternal. He is not born, and in spite of his being situated in a material body, he is transcendental and eternal. Thus, he cannot be destroyed. By nature, he is full of bliss. He does not engage himself in any material activities. Therefore, the activities performed due to his contact with the material bodies do not entangle him.
So, what is the position? So now I've seen the soul everywhere. I know it's a soul, not a body. What is the nature of the soul? What are some things that we are getting at? What is the nature of the soul? It's eternal. 1. What else?
Transcendental.
Transcendental to what?
To this material world.
To the modes of material nature.
Emotion.
To the material world. Why is it transcendental?
Part and parcel of Krishna.
It is part and parcel of Krishna. And Krishna is
Transcendental.
He is above the mood.
spirit. Spirit is beyond material. Right? Apara and para shakti. So by definition, the spirit soul would be transcendental to the modes. But wait a minute, we talk about no, I'm conditioned by the modes. So hasn't the soul become conditioned by the modes?
It's just a covering.
It's a covering. So the point here is that the soul remains pure. It is untouched by matter, even though it is situated in the material body. Now this is hard for us to understand, right? If I jump into a swimming pool, I'm going to get wet. Because I'm in the swimming pool. I'm wet. How does the soul enter into the body and to remain pure? So this is because, simple understanding, matter cannot touch spirit. And how do we know that? What has Krishna told us previously to prove this to us? that matter cannot touch spirit? Second chapter.
I don't know about the second chapter. I have an example which we learned somewhere. If I can tell that example,
Yeah,
it's
why
coming in my mind. That air, for example, Srila Prabhupada, as you mentioned, air cannot enter into the mud. For example, it goes into the mud, but it does not enter it. It does not get in that constituents. The same, similarly, that spirit and matter can.
Srila Prabhupada is going to mention that in the very next purport.
Oh, that's the next one?
Yeah, the very next purport. But Krishna said in the second chapter, the soul cannot be cut by any weapon. Why cannot it be cut by any weapon? Because matter can't touch spirit. Why can it not be burned by any fire? What's the answer?
Matter cannot be touched by spirit.
Why can it not be withered by any wind?
It cannot be touched by spirit. Or matter.
Matter cannot touch spirit. Krishna has already established that, right? In establishing the eternal nature of the soul. So the soul is eternally pure. It is spirit. It is not contaminated by the modes. So then, what is contaminated by the modes?
The body.
Specifically, our consciousness. And thus the soul is taken on a journey, a ride. Not necessarily a pleasant ride, a dangerous ride. Right? And Prabhupada writes in the purport that life is not coming from the combination of matter. Right? The living entity is being impregnated into the universe by Krishna himself. It is not a nature of matter in the spirit. Okay? So now Krishna is going to give an example of this untouched nature of the soul in 33. Let's read 33. Two more people can read.
The sky, due to its suitable nature, does not mix with anything. Although it is all-pervading, similarly, the soul situated in Brahman vision does not mix with the body, though situated in that body.
The air enters into water, mud, stool, or whatever is there. Still, it does not mix with anything. Similarly, the living entity, even though situated in varieties of bodies, is aloof from them due to his subtle nature. Therefore, it is impossible to see with the material eyes how the living entity is in contact with this body and how he is out of it after the destruction of the body. No one in science can assert.
Yep. Okay. So, what example does Krishna give? Then we'll discuss Prabhupada's example. To understand that the soul is not contaminated by the modes.
The sky does not mix with anything, though it is prevalent everywhere.
The sky is everywhere, yet nothing mixes with the sky. So the soul is fully within the body, yet it's untouched by the material body. Right? Now Prabhupada gives a very nice example that Mataji was referring to. So what is this example?
How the air enters into like water, mud, stool, or whatever it may be. It doesn't really mix. Stay.
It remains intact, untouched. Right? So again, the main point of this is that the spirit soul remains pure in its eternal state, but the position of the soul is covered by the false ego. So as soon as there's false ego in this body, the soul's situation is subdued, it's covered. Just like a diamond is covered in mud, it doesn't luster, it doesn't shine, doesn't sparkle. Right? So, but what happens when we remove that false ego? So when we see the soul is present everywhere, we begin to see it in ourselves. And that is attacking the false ego. And thus the real nature of the soul can emerge. But again, the soul is never contaminated. It is never impure. Because matter can never touch spirit. So that is the, again, all of this vision, why it's relevant to us? It is for our self-realization and helping us come through the process of emotion. Right? So Krishna is giving all of this, very elaborate vision, and then he'll conclude the chapter with this illumination that we'll discuss next time. Okay? So thank you very much. Shri Prabhupada. Any comments, questions, discussion? Okay. Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Who is it?
When Prabhupada says one can attain spiritual vision despite he had come to this material world with desires due to past karma. My understanding here, Prabhu, is 1. He needs to develop an unflinching faith on Krishna all the time. 2. Along with this faith, he needs to apply the same in his life around him, which can elevate him to transcendental world. Hence, to have transcendental vision, we need to have both. Am I right, Prabhu?
Yes, and repeat the first part, the 1 and 2 again. Faith and just repeat the whole thing again.
Yes, when Prabhupada says one can attain spiritual vision despite he has come to this material world with desire due to past karma. My understanding here, Prabhu, is 1. He needs to develop an unflinching faith on Krishna all the time. 2. Along with his faith, he needs to apply the same in his life around him, which can elevate him to transcendental world. Hence, to have transcendental vision, we need to have both. Am I right, Prabhu?
Yeah, so faith means that it's actually applied.
Yes.
Right? I can't say I have faith that I'm spirit, soul, and not this body, and then perform all kinds of bodily oriented activities. Though that would go counter to my faith. Right? So when we say unflinching faith in Krishna, in my position, the test of that is my actions. I can say, yeah, bro, I know I'm not this body. I know. It's something new. We can know it, but do we really know it? And then whether we know it or not is measured by our actions. So, yes, it must be applied in all aspects of life. As Prabhuji mentioned, that it's not a compartmentalized. Okay, I am spirit, soul in this section of my life. In this section, I'm the body. No, that is counterintuitive. Right? So both are needed, and one is an indicator of the other. Our actions in our life is indicative of the level or the extent of our faith in that fact. Okay.
So as a follow-up, not a follow-up, basically in summary, just the point number 1 is all you need to have. Once you have achieved that, everything else is covered. So 2 is basically just a subset of 1.
Yeah, it's a byproduct.
Byproduct.
Yeah, the stronger our faith, the stronger our actions will be. Right? We can pray to Krishna. Krishna, please give me faith in the chanting of the holy names, the powers of the holy names. Because what's going to happen if I have faith in the holy names? I'm going to chant very nicely. Because I have faith in what it does. Right? So, yes, we can pray for the intensification of our faith in these. And that's why Krishna says in the 6th chapter that the highest of all yogis, they abide with me in faith. Shraddhavan bhajate yoma. Right? So this with Shraddha, this faith abides in me.
But everything starts off with little bit of Shraddha in the beginning. So that is little bit of faith. Right? And that will lead to progress to the unflinching faith is the ultimate.
Because by that faith we begin to associate and then practice. And that, what does that do? It increases our faith. Right? Faith isn't a light switch, on or off. It's progressive, or maybe it's a light switch with a dimmer. It gets increasingly intense in time. Right? So sometimes you think, I have faith. No, it's the extent of the level of my faith. Right? So we have some faith in all of this. Why we beat ourselves? Our goal is to keep increasing our faith. And we talked about that surrender to Krishna's instructions. Well, I have some faith that He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I have some faith that He loves me very much. I have some faith that His plan is perfect. Now we want to make some to absolute. Right? Because then, what is left? Nothing. And everything else then becomes Krishna says that the only instruction ultimately that Arjuna is to take, surrender unto him. But all the other information is there to build that faith in that instruction. Knowing that we're not just going to take it at face value. We should, but we're not.
Because of this intelligence. Or
What's that?
so-called intelligence which is given to us.
You characterize it for a so-called intelligence. Perfect. I was having a discussion with a very, very close friend of mine from college, and we were having a spiritual discussion. He's watched these Journey of Self-Discovery series. He's a practicing Catholic, and so during Lent he wanted to watch them. So now we're having some question and answers, and this and he's a very, 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 very well educated individual, and he says ultimately though we have to acknowledge we're not so intelligent. It was nice to hear, because our intelligence is so minuscule, but we become so proud of I know this and I know that. But relative to what is to be known, we have very little know. Anything else? Is that a discussion, Jeanette? No? Okay, so let's chant the holy names of our with great faith. Shri Prabhupada ki
Jai.